I admire the owner of the Fisherman's Pub because I see a move seems to be afoot to get it back as Jewtown. Church Street was Jew Street,
Right.
and he is holding his own. I know there are many people who would who might have offered him 10 times the market value or 20 times to have a beachside restaurant in that spot. But he's holding his own and he's running a good business. The fish market there was put there in 1953, is being renovated. But Junior, as we call him, or Clement Armstrong, I must express kudos to him.
Yeah. Big kudos to him.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Um, some of the beautiful houses in Spikestown have disappeared. Where the Omni Mall is now used to be a really nice house, Georgian Caribbean architecture that belonged to a CHP Jordan, I think related to Elmer Jordan. And then on the corner where the Barbados Workers Union, Cooperative Credit Union, that was empty, but there was a big upstairs house there where the Northern Business Center is. It was owned by a Valley McLean, I think was his name. And then there was the Sinner's Bench. Elmer snuck it up inside where Town Square Mall is now, up inside. Because there's a main road with Jordans over there. But up inside on the other side was Elmer Snack It. Because as I told you before, Elmer Supermarket was on that left side going to town, heading southwards. And that Snack It would sell cheeseburgers, 7-Up floats. You know, the fare at that Snack It was out of this world. People would come from Christchurch, St. Philip, all over to go down to Elmer Snack It for a milkshake or a cheeseburger or a hamburger. Even the hot dogs.
Yeah, that was a testimony of how good
it was. Yeah, yes. Elmer Snack It. Right. And I remember when the Yankees were here, the naval base, they came in with this big boat and they let the front of it down like how the harbor master used to. And they drove off these big D9 bulldozers and they set up the base at Harrison's Point. And I live in a house, my house is in a corner. Almost 4 times a year, a Yankee car, you know those fishtail cars? Those big American Dodges and Chevrolets and so.
Yes.
I mean the ones from the 60s, not the nice ones. No. They would run off the road coming back drunk from somewhere. And 3 or 4 times a year you would get accidents there, but half of the accidents were Americans. I remember Bartlett shop in Sand Street. I remember James Griffith's shop where the Yankees used to hang out. I remember the I don't want to say the prostitutes, but the girl is part of it, right? Yes, who would be there. And I remember that people built houses and rented them to the Yankees, which made some people rich in the north of the island. So the American Naval Base is also part of the history of Spikestown.
Right.
Although it's not Spikestown, it was in St. Lucie, but most of their entertainment was done in Spikestown.
What about the East Indian community in Spikestown? I guess there was a sprinkling of
We've got
stores,
a sprinkling even right now.
As opposed to,
no, there wasn't any real East Indian community. I remember the itinerant vendors.
Yes, okay.
Like Moses, who would come out. I didn't know French then. He used to come to the lady next door to me and say, Mademoiselle. But I didn't know what it meant. So I used to just say Mademoiselle. Then I realized he was saying Mademoiselle.
Right.
Right? But there were more itinerant vendors, coolie men. I mean, people don't like the term, but it's a fact of history. And there were just about 2 Syro-Lebanese in Spikestown.
Right.
There was Corey, which was a church, which was a store just above, in Barbadian parlance, just above the St. Peter's Parish Church. There was Corey, which then went on and became Saheli's. Okay. And there was the man at the bridge store. I can't remember his name.
This would have been the Saheli's that you see.
The same Saheli's that was in Bridgetown. They had a branch in Spikestown.
Okay.
Just to the east of the church, St. Peter's Church wall. It burnt down. As you know, in 1980, April the 21st, there was a fire which destroyed St. Peter's Church. And at the time, the incumbent he went on to become Bishop Rufus Broom. And it took a few years to rebuild the church. But it still has its beauty. The Cathedral of the North, it still has its beauty. But that fire destroyed.
The Cathedral of the North.
Yes, it is. I just gone to teach at Courson Parry then. I went to teach at CP in September 79. I'd done 8 years at Atherley.
Oh, that's before I was born.
All right, 8 years at Atherley and 31 at CP. And it
Impressive.
was the second term, no, it was the beginning of the third term, 1981, when that fire happened, so we could stay up at the school and look down on the fire happening. We could see the church being destroyed.
Wow. Wow.
Right, but I also enjoyed my time at Fortune Prairie, 31 years. I taught, as I did at Atherley, I taught English and Spanish at first, and then it became Spanish and French. I went on to become head of department for my last 17 years. When I went there, it was all boys, and it was rough and tumble. I mean, when you go to a boys' school, it is. But then when the girls came, the boys began to mellow. I remember when it was all boys, and there might be something where six or a dozen Alexandra girls might be coming to a debate. And if those Alexandra girls walked down the corridor and you were teaching, it was impossible to continue teaching. It really was. The boys just got restless.
Right.
And
Because they weren't
they were
accustomed
accustomed
to
to
the
having girls
co-educational
co-education.
system. Right.
Right. Then the girls, I think it was 1981. Mr. Matthews was the principal then. Mr. Matthews, he didn't believe in flogging. He believed in what do you call it? The psychological and trying to reach people.
And were his methods successful?
I wouldn't want to comment on that. But point is, the first set of girls came into fifth form. They came from community high school, Darcy Scott and his wife. The school had just been closed down on Barbados.
Right.
So they brought in girls at fifth form, and they brought in girls at first form simultaneously. So the school, we weren't ready. The toilet facilities and so were not really properly done and so on. It's only about 4 years later that we really got it up to where it should be, after complaints were made.
Okay.
And then from there we moved to Mr. King, Hallam King.
Hallam King, yes.
And from Mr. King we moved to Mr. Adams, Senator Alvin Adams. And from Mr. Adams we then moved to Mr. Thompson, acted for a short while. And then Mr. Ferguson came. But it's a good school, Curzon Prairie, a fantastic campus, because on one side, inland, it is pastoral, and when you look over Port St. Charles and Almond Beach, it is touristic. On the other side. We saw from the school, best of both worlds. We saw when they started digging out to do the Port St. Charles Marina, we could stay from the hill, on top of the hill, and see everything that was happening.
And the marina is beautiful.
Right, and right. Actually, it was said once that one of the investors, whether foreign or local, wanted to buy the school property to put townhouses overlooking the marina. And that investor would have put the school, he would have built a new school up by the Hammond's factory on Farm Road. That it is said.
It is said.
Right, yeah.
Okay, give us some feedback on the parish school and the chorus school. Yes.
As you know, perhaps, the first Anglican bishop came out to Barbados in 1825, Bishop Coleridge. In 1831, there was the great hurricane that 1,500 Barbadians perished. Most of the churches were destroyed, including All Saints Church, which had not been destroyed from 1649 until then. Other churches had gone down in different hurricanes. But 1831, so Coleridge came out as bishop, and he did a wonderful job of rebuilding more than 10 churches. Yeah, and then the Bishop Parry came out. Unfortunately, the Anglican Church condoned slavery up to abolition, up to emancipation. Of course, we know the story of Sarah Ann Gill. She was against it, Methodist. But then Bishop Parry came out and did quite a good job as well. And both of them bequeathed in their last will and testament, they asked that a school for poor whites and children of the domestics there who worked in the plantation house. And these two schools had a humble beginnings I think they go back to about 1880. And what happened is the parish school was in St. Lucie, just north of the St. Lucy's Church where the telephone exchange is. So there's a monument to the north of the St. Lucy Cemetery, which commemorates the Paris School. And the Chorus School was at Bristol Pasture, the up Farm Road in St. Peter, going up Rectory Hill, up by the Rectory.
Right.
And the two schools were amalgamated in February 1952, 68 years ago,
Right.
on that spot in Ashton, which used to be the Ashton Hall Plantation. And of course, some illustrious people have attended both schools, and after 52, the single school.
Right.
So come March the 7th, for example, I'm a member of the Board of Management at Course in Paris, so I'm quite au fait. Yeah. Come March the 7th, a Saturday, we're going to be having a grand dinner, and we're going to have the first 8 inductees into the Course in Paris Hall of Fame. Course in Paris has done really well, but it does not get the merit and the praise it deserves. Okay. You want to hear who those 8 inductees are? We would. You've got 2 governor generals, one posthumously, Sir Clifford Husbands, right, and Sir Elliot Belgrave. You've got 2 bishops, Bishop Rufus Broom, the first black local bishop. Yes. And you've got Canon Sion Goodrich, who was Bishop of the Windward Islands, right, the Diocese of the Windward Islands. You've got 2 governor generals, you've got 2 prime ministers, the Honorable Lloyd Erskine Sandiford, right, and the Honorable Owen Halford. So those already you hear the illustrious. Yes. And then we've got Keith Boyce. He played for the West Indies. I used to go to Course in Paris and watch him playing. He's always been a swashbuckling batsman, and he's an all-rounder. He was goalkeeper for the school and everything. So Keith Boyce then went on to play for Essex and in England at the time when each county would have at least 1 or 2 foreign players, and then he played for the West Indies. So he's being awarded posthumously, and the other person is Sir Hilary Beckles. Yes, Sir Hilary went to school at Course in Paris up until 3rd form. Okay. And then he emigrated to England, but he's still Course in Paris. Yeah, so those are the 8 inductees, the first set of inductees. But it reads like who's who of Barbados when you see who attended Course in Paris. But I don't think the school promotes that enough, unlike another school which shall not be mentioned, where they're always talking about what they've done. Up and on. Yeah, yes. Right. Right. So the Course in Paris School, a large campus. Right now we're in the process of developing at the back of the school a health and wellness garden. Mm-hmm. So we planted a few trees. We planted 30 trees at the school premises just Tuesday this week as part of the week gathering and the move to plant 1 million trees and so on around the island with the climate, to combat climate change and so on. So quite a good school. I enjoyed my time I spent there. Have no regrets. And I just wish them all the best. Yes. Under a female principal for the first time, Mrs. Goodrich. And they're having sports just behind here right now. So when I leave here, I'm going to pass by the Usain Bolt Stadium. This
is really memorable.
Yes.
Because we're here talking
about the school. And right behind us, they're having sports. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much, Mr. Atherley. You've shared history that spanned, academics in terms of school history, ancestral history, social history. You have given us a wealth of knowledge and information.
What you just heard is when I do a tour.
Yes.
They hear about you. Yeah, they hear that. So people who leave Barbados knowing a lot more than the average Bayesian may know. Right. So our tourists, our visitors, our cruise ship passengers, our day trippers, they get about half of what you just heard in one tour.
In one tour. Yeah, that's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And you have indeed.
And of course, I get the emails coming back to me when they get back home.
Yes, and I guess giving you glowing compliments and praises and what's not.
They do. Yeah. Right.
You're seriously.
I'm modest. I don't want to be.
Okay, right. But you're seriously well informed, and we thank you for coming to the Barbados Department of Archives and sharing your vast knowledge with us and the people of Barbados.
Okay, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. Okay. All right.